when I saw our kitchen countertop reflected in the window behind my daughter's shoulder. The same granite I'd picked out 15 years ago. The same mint green KitchenAid mixer sitting exactly where I left it that morning. I felt my entire world tilt sideways. The photo was supposed to be from Rome. The caption read, "Sunset over the Colosseum. Can't believe I'm actually here. #study abroad, #living my dream, #Italy." But that wasn't the Roman sun casting shadows across her face. That was the afternoon light that came through our kitchen window every day at 4:30, filtering through the oak tree in our backyard. I stared at my phone screen until my eyes burned. My hands were shaking so badly I had to set my coffee cup down before I dropped it. 48 years old, and I'd never felt this kind of cold wash over me. The kind that starts in your chest and spreads outward until even your fingertips go numb. My daughter Cassidy was supposed to be 5,000 miles away, studying art history at a prestigious program in Italy. I had been so proud when she got accepted. We'd celebrated with champagne, the expensive kind, and I'd cried happy tears watching her pack her suitcase with guidebooks and Italian phrase cards. That was 4 months ago. Since then, I'd sent her $30,000. $10,000 for the program tuition, $20,000 for living expenses, sent in careful installments every 2 weeks, just like she'd asked. "Rome is so expensive, Mom," she'd texted. "But it's worth every penny. This is changing my life." I'd believed her. God help me, I'd believed every word. Let me back up, because none of this will make sense unless you understand how we got here. My name is Margaret, and for most of my life, I thought I was doing everything right. I worked as a senior accountant at a mid-sized firm in Ohio, the kind of stable, respectable job that paid well enough to raise a daughter on my own after my husband died when Cassidy was 7. Heart attack at 33. One day he was coaching her soccer team, the next day he was gone. So it was just the two of us. Me and my little girl with his dark curls and his easy smile. I worked long hours, saved carefully, invested sensibly. I wanted to give Cassidy everything, not just things but opportunities. Piano lessons, art classes, summer camps. When she said she wanted to study abroad her senior year of college, I didn't hesitate. Even though $30,000 was more than I should have spent, even though it would drain most of my savings, I said yes. Because that's what mothers do, isn't it? We sacrifice. We go without so our children can have more. Cassidy was always a good kid. Not perfect. She'd had her rebellious phase at 16, stayed out past curfew a few times, got caught with wine coolers at a friend's party once, but nothing serious. She graduated high school with honors, got into a good state university, seemed to be doing well. She called me every Sunday, sent me photos of her dorm room, her friends, her art projects. When she told me about the study abroad program last spring, her voice had been electric with excitement. "Mom, this is a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. The program is ranked top 5 in the world. I'll be studying Renaissance art in the actual cities where it was created. I could intern at museums, build connections, maybe even stay in Europe after graduation." How could I say no to that? So I'd liquidated a CD, taken out a small personal loan, and wired her the first $10,000 for tuition in early August. She'd sent me photos of the acceptance paperwork, the program itinerary, even a picture of her plane ticket. The day she left, I drove her to the airport. We got there 3 hours early because I was nervous. I'd never been to Europe, never even left the country, and here was my baby girl about to spend 4 months in a place where she didn't speak the language. I'd held her tight at the security checkpoint, breathing in her shampoo smell one last time, fighting back tears. "I'm going to miss you so much," I'd whispered into her hair. "I'll call you the second I land, Mom. I promise." She'd pulled back, and her eyes were wet too. "Thank you for making this possible. I love you so much. I love you more." Then she'd walked through security, turned back once to wave, and disappeared into the crowd. For the first few weeks, everything seemed normal. She'd called me from Rome, describing the narrow cobblestone streets, the gelato shops on every corner, her tiny apartment with the red shutters. She sent photos constantly, selfies in front of fountains, pictures of pasta dishes, snapshots of ancient buildings. I'd printed out my favorites and stuck them on the refrigerator. My coworkers asked about her every day. "How's Cassidy doing in Italy?" they'd ask, and I'd beam with pride, pulling up her latest Instagram post to show them. The money requests had started in September. "Mom, the grocery prices here are insane. Could you send an extra 500?" Then 2 weeks later, "My roommate backed out and I have to cover her share of rent. Can you help?" Then, "The program is offering an optional weekend trip to Florence, but it costs $800. Every time I'd sent it. Sometimes it was tight. I'd skip my own haircut appointment, bring lunch from home instead of buying it, put off replacing my worn-out work shoes. But it was worth it, I told myself. This was her dream. Now, staring at that photo with our kitchen reflected in the window, I realized I'd been funding something else entirely. I sat at my kitchen table for a long time, just staring at that photo. The light outside changed from afternoon gold to evening gray, and I didn't move, didn't turn on the lights, just sat there in the growing darkness, feeling something fundamental shift inside me. There had to be an explanation. Maybe I was wrong about the reflection. Maybe Italian kitchens looked like American ones. Maybe the granite countertops were popular over there too. And the mixer. Well, KitchenAid sold internationally, didn't they? But even as I tried to convince myself, I knew. The way you know when you wake up at 3 in the morning and just understand that something is deeply, irrevocably wrong. I opened Instagram again and started scrolling through Cassidy's posts from the past 4 months. Really looking at them this time, not just double tapping and moving on like a proud mother. I zoomed in on backgrounds, studied shadows, examined details. There, in a photo from my favorite cafe near the Spanish Steps, the menu board visible behind her shoulder. I could barely make out the text, but I enlarged it until the pixels blurred. The prices were in dollars, not euros. And that wasn't Italian script. Those were English words. Another photo, supposedly taken at a street market near my apartment. But the license plate on the car in the background wasn't European. It was an Ohio plate. I could just make out the first 3 letters, JKR. My heart was hammering now. I went back further, to the very first post after she'd arrived in Rome. A selfie with the caption, "Made it. Exhausted but so excited. This view from my apartment is incredible." The window behind her showed a brick building. Not the terracotta Italian style from the movies, but regular red brick with white trim. And there, barely visible in the corner of the frame, a street sign. I zoomed in until my eyes ached. The sign was in English. And the street name was Maple Avenue. I knew Maple Avenue. It was in Fairfield, Ohio. 2 hours away from where I was sitting. I don't remember making the decision to look through her credit card statements. I'd co-signed for her student card when she turned 18, mostly for emergencies, and she'd been using it regularly for expenses in Italy. I'd been paying the bills without really examining them, trusting her, the way I'd always trusted her. Now I logged into the account with trembling fingers. The charges went back 4 months, starting the day after she'd supposedly left for Rome. But they weren't from Italy. They were from Ohio. From Pennsylvania. From Indiana. Target in Fairfield. A grocery store in Cincinnati. Gas stations along I-75. A furniture rental company. Netflix subscription. Spotify. DoorDash deliveries to an address I didn't recognize. 2847, Westchester Lane, Apartment 4B, Fairfield, Ohio. There were hundreds of charges. Thousands of dollars spent at American stores, American restaurants. Money I'd sent her for expensive Italian groceries had been spent at Walmart. The program fees I'd wired her had gone toward furniture rental and streaming services. I pulled up Google Maps with shaking hands and typed in the Westchester Lane address. Street view loaded slowly, revealing a bland apartment complex. The kind with beige siding and small balconies, probably built in the early 2000s. Young professional housing, the rental ad would say. I sat back in my chair and pressed my hands over my mouth, afraid I might scream. My daughter had never gone to Italy. She'd never gotten on that plane. The study abroad program might have been real. The acceptance paperwork certainly looked authentic, but she hadn't attended. Instead, she'd taken my $30,000 and moved into an apartment 2 hours away, staging fake photos and lying to me every single day for 4 months. The landline rang, startling me out of my daze. I looked at the caller ID, Cassidy. For a moment, I just stared at it. Our regular Sunday call. Every week, like clockwork, she'd call me from Italy and we'd talk for an hour. She'd tell me about her classes, her new friends, the museum she'd visited. I'd tell her about work, about the neighbors, about how much I missed her. All lies. Every word. The phone kept ringing. My hand hovered over the receiver. Part of me wanted to answer, to scream at her, to demand answers. But a larger part, the part that had been an accountant for 25 years, the part that knew you never made important decisions in anger, held back. I let it go to voicemail. A minute later, my cell phone buzzed with a text. Mom! Tried calling the house. Just wanted to tell you about the amazing day I had exploring Trastevere. This neighborhood is so beautiful. Miss you. Call you back later, Red Heart. Trastevere. I looked it up. It was a district in Rome, known for its medieval streets and authentic trattorias. She'd probably found it on a travel blog, memorized some details to make her lie more convincing. I turned my phone face down on the table and stood up. My legs felt weak, unsteady. I walked to the refrigerator where I'd hung all those photos. My daughter smiling in front of the Trevi fountain, holding a gelato cone near the Pantheon, standing in St. Peter's Square with her arms spread wide. All fake. All carefully constructed lies. I pulled them down one by one, studying them now with accountant's eyes. The lighting was wrong in some of them, too flat, too artificial. And none of them showed other tourists in the background, which was strange for the most visited city in Italy. She must have used Photoshop or maybe AI. Maybe she'd even paid for stock photos and edited herself into them. The detail that had gone into this deception was staggering. The planning. The calculated manipulation. This wasn't a teenage mistake or a moment of bad judgment. This was sustained, deliberate fraud. Against her own mother. I gathered all the photos into a pile and set them on the kitchen counter. Then I went to my office and opened my laptop. If Cassidy had learned anything from growing up with an accountant mother, it should have been this. Numbers don't lie. Transactions leave trails. And I was very, very good at following trails. I worked through the night like I used to during tax season. Except this team members on the screen made my stomach turn with each new discovery. I created a spreadsheet. Columns for date, amount, merchant, location. Every transaction from Cassidy's credit card, every Venmo payment I'd sent her, every wire transfer. The evidence mounted row by row. A damning ledger of betrayal written in debits and credits. By 3 a.m, the picture was complete. She'd rented the Fairfield apartment on August 15th, 2 days before her supposed flight to Rome. First month, last month, security deposit, $3,200. Furniture rental, $1,800. She'd bought groceries at Kroger on August 18th. Had her nails done at a salon in downtown Fairfield on August 22nd. Ordered pizza from Domino's on August 24th. But it was the Venmo transactions that told the real story. There was a name that appeared over and over. Tyler Morrison. She'd sent him money. He'd sent her money. Small amounts at first. $20 here, $40 there. But by October, the transfers were larger. $500 with a heart emoji. $300 with the note, "Love you, babe." Tyler Morrison. I typed the name into Facebook, my hands steadier now. The initial shock had burned away, leaving something harder and colder in its place. His profile was public. 24 years old, worked at an auto body shop, posted mainly about gaming and sports. And there, in his photos from 3 months ago, my daughter. Cassidy wrapped in his arms at a bar, both of them laughing. Cassidy sitting on his lap at what looked like a house party. Cassidy kissing his cheek in front of that same beige apartment complex. The date stamps on the photos matched exactly with when she was supposed to be in Rome. I clicked through his friends list and found Cassidy's profile. She'd created a second account. Not the public one I followed, but a private one under a slightly different name. Cass Morrison. The profile picture showed her and Tyler, his arm around her waist, her left hand prominently displayed. She was wearing a ring. I must have made some kind of sound, a gasp or a sob, I don't know, because suddenly I was crying. Not quiet, dignified tears, but the kind of crying that shakes your whole body. that comes from somewhere deep and primal. My daughter was engaged. Or married. Or playing house with some boy I'd never met. Using money I'd sent her for an education. Money I'd scraped together by skipping meals and working overtime and liquidating 15 years of careful savings. And she'd lied to me. Every single day for 4 months, she'd looked at my texts, my calls, my worried questions about whether she was eating enough or staying safe, and she'd lied. I cried until I had nothing left, until my eyes were swollen and my throat was raw. Then I went to the bathroom, washed my face with cold water, and looked at myself in the mirror. The woman looking back at me was 58 years old, older than I felt most days. There were deep circles under her eyes and new lines around her mouth. She looked tired, used up, but she didn't look broken. I'd raised a daughter alone after my husband died. I'd worked my way up from junior accountant to senior partner. I'd survived audits and recessions and years of doing everything myself, because I had to. I'd been knocked down before, and I'd gotten back up. I could do it again. By the time the sun came up, I had a plan. First, I needed confirmation. Real, undeniable proof, not just credit card statements and Facebook photos, but evidence that would hold up if this became a legal matter. Because $30,000 was fraud. That was a felony. I called in sick to work, the first time in 3 years, and got in my car. The drive to Fairfield took exactly 2 hours and 17 minutes. I used the time to think, to plan, to lock down the emotions that threatened to spill over every time I imagined confronting her. The Westchester Lane apartment complex looked exactly like it had in Google Street View. Bland, utilitarian, cheap. This was what my $30,000 had paid for. This and a boy with a public Facebook profile full of beer pong photos. I parked across the street and waited. At 10:47 a.m., the door to apartment 4B opened. Cassidy stepped out, wearing leggings and an oversized sweatshirt. Her hair piled on top of her head in a messy bun. She looked exactly like she did every morning before class, comfortable, casual, normal. A tall guy with dark hair followed her out. Tyler Morrison. He said something I couldn't hear, and she laughed, reaching up to kiss him before heading toward a beat-up Honda Civic in the parking lot. I watched her drive away, and then I did something I'm not particularly proud of, but I'm not ashamed of either. I walked up to apartment 4B and knocked. Tyler Morrison opened the door wearing gym shorts and no shirt, holding a protein shaker. Up close, he looked younger than his photos, barely out of college, with the kind of casual confidence that comes from never having to struggle for anything. "Can I help you?" he asked. "I'm looking for Cassidy Hart," I said calmly. "I'm her mother." The color drained from his face so fast I thought he might faint. The protein shaker slipped from his hand and hit the floor with a hollow thud, chocolate shake splattering across the entryway tile. "Oh shit," he whispered. I'd expected a lot of reactions. Anger, defensiveness, maybe even aggression. What I didn't expect was for him to step back and say, in a voice that sounded genuinely frightened, "Please don't tell her you know. She'll kill me." That's when I understood. Tyler Morrison wasn't a co-conspirator. He was another victim. Or at least, that's what he wanted me to believe. "I think," I said quietly, "you'd better invite me inside." The apartment was exactly what you'd expect from two 20-somethings playing house with someone else's money. IKEA furniture still bearing the tags, a flat-screen TV that was too large for the space, gaming consoles stacked under the entertainment center, empty takeout containers on the coffee table. The air smelled like cologne and microwaved pizza. Tyler stood in the middle of the living room, arms crossed over his bare chest, looking like he wanted to disappear into the carpet. "How long have you known?" I asked. My voice was steady, detached even. The accountant voice I used when reviewing discrepancies in financial statements. "Known what?" he said, but his eyes were already darting toward the door, calculating escape routes. "That my daughter isn't in Italy. That she's been lying to me for 4 months. That I've been sending her $30,000 for a study abroad program she never attended." He flinched at the number. 30,000? Jesus. She told me it was like 10 maybe. "Sit down, Tyler." He sat. I remained standing. "Start from the beginning," I said. "And don't lie to me. I'm very good with numbers, and I'm even better at spotting inconsistencies." I've already seen the Venmo transactions. I've seen your Facebook photos. I know you've been living here together since August. He rubbed his face with both hands. When he looked up at me, there was something close to relief in his eyes, like he'd been waiting for this moment, dreading it and wanting it all at once. We met last spring, he said quietly. At a party. We started dating, and things got serious pretty fast. By summer, we were talking about moving in together after she graduated. She was supposed to go to Italy. I know. She was excited about it at first, showed me all the brochures, talked about it constantly. But then she started saying how much she'd miss me, how long distance never works, how it felt like bad timing. He paused. I told her to go anyway. I said we'd figure it out. But she didn't go. No. A few weeks before she was supposed to leave, she came to me with this plan. His voice dropped. She said she'd tell you she was going, but actually stay here. She'd rent us an apartment, and we could live together for a semester while she figured out what she really wanted to do. She said you'd never know the difference. You'd never been to Italy anyway, so you wouldn't know what it really looked like. She could just post some fake photos and tell you stories. The casual cruelty of it. The calculated assessment that I was too ignorant, too trusting to notice, hit me like a physical blow. But I kept my face neutral. And you went along with this. At first, I didn't think she'd actually do it. It seemed crazy. But then she showed me the apartment she'd found, and she was so excited, and I thought. He trailed off. I thought maybe it was just for a month or two. Like, she'd tell you the truth eventually, once she'd figured out what she wanted. But she didn't tell me the truth. No. And it kept getting worse. Every time you sent money, she'd come home with new stuff, new clothes, new shoes, expensive dinners. She'd talk about all the things we could do, places we could go. Last month she started talking about us taking a real trip to Vegas, using your money. He looked genuinely uncomfortable now, squirming under my gaze. I told her it was wrong. I told her she needed to come clean. But she said you'd be fine, that you'd forgive her eventually, that you'd rather have her happy and close than miserable in Italy. He met my eyes. She said you were a pushover. The word hung in the air between us. Pushover. Is that what I was? I'd worked 2 jobs after my husband died to keep Cassidy in a good school district. I'd gone without vacations, new cars, nice clothes. Also she could have opportunities one never had. I'd said yes when she needed money for art supplies, for college applications, for this supposed study abroad program. But pushover? No. That wasn't sacrifice. That wasn't love. That was being used. Where is she now? I asked. She goes to the gym every morning, then usually gets coffee with friends. She'll be back around noon. He glanced at his phone. You could wait, talk to her. No, I said. I don't think I will. I pulled out my phone and opened my banking app. Tyler watched nervously as I typed. What are you doing? Canceling her credit card. Stopping all automatic payments. Cutting off access to my accounts. I looked up at him. And calling the apartment complex to inform them that I'm not financially responsible for this lease. Wait, hold on. You said you thought this would last a month or 2. It's been 4. If you love my daughter, really love her, then you'll help her face the consequences of what she's done. If you're just here for the free ride. I let the sentence hang. Tyler's face flushed red. I work. I pay my share. Then you'll be fine when the money stops. I finished the last transaction and pocketed my phone. I'm going to leave now. When Cassidy gets home, you can tell her I stopped by. Or you can let her figure it out herself when her card stopped working. Your choice. I walked toward the door, then paused with my hand on the knob. Tyler? That ring she's wearing in your photos. Did you give it to her? He shook his head. She bought it herself. I guess with your money. She wanted people to think we were engaged. I kept telling her we should wait, do it right, but she said it didn't matter. It was just for show. Just for show. Another lie, another layer of deception. Thank you for your honesty, I said. And I meant it. Whatever Tyler's failings, at least he'd told me the truth when it mattered. I walked out of apartment 4B and back to my car. My hands were shaking again, But this time it wasn't from shock or grief. It was from rage. The drive home was a blur. I kept the radio off, needing the silence to think. My phone buzzed repeatedly in the cup holder. Texts from Cassidy, probably wondering why I hadn't answered her call last night. I didn't look at them. When I got home, I went straight to my office and pulled out a file folder I'd kept since Cassidy was born. Inside were all her important documents: birth certificate, social security card, immunization records, school transcripts. And there, near the back, the paperwork from the study abroad program. I read through it carefully this time, lawyer's eyes instead of proud mother's eyes. The program was real. I verified it on their website. The acceptance letter looked legitimate, complete with official letterhead and a signature from the program director. But when I looked closer at the dates, something didn't add up. The acceptance was dated June 12th. But the enrollment deadline, the date by which students had to confirm their spot and pay the deposit, was June 30th. I opened my email and searched for correspondence from Cassidy around those dates. There it was, an email from her on July 2nd with the subject line "Program Confirmed." 2 days after the deadline. I called the program's international office. A cheerful woman with a British accent answered on the third ring. "Hello, this is Margaret Hart. My daughter Cassidy was supposed to attend your fall semester program in Rome. I'm calling to verify her enrollment status." There was the sound of typing. "Hart, you said? Let me pull up her file." A pause. "Yes, here she is. Cassidy Hart, accepted to our program. But I'm showing that she withdrew her application on June 28th. Just a few days before the program started, actually. We had to give her spot to someone on the wait list." My stomach dropped. "She withdrew?" "Yes, ma'am. We received an email from her account stating that she'd decided to pursue other opportunities. We were sorry to lose her. Her application was quite strong. But these things happen." The woman's voice softened. "Is everything all right? Did she receive a refund for her deposit?" More typing. "It looks like she never actually paid the deposit. The acceptance was conditional on payment by June 30th. When we didn't receive it, we reached out, and that's when she sent the withdrawal email. So she'd never even paid the deposit. Never had any intention of going. She'd probably showed me a fake confirmation email, counted on me not checking too carefully. Thank you. I managed to say. You've been very helpful. I hung up and sat there, staring at the acceptance letter that now meant nothing. She'd been planning this since June. 3 months of preparation. 3 months of setting up the perfect lie. My phone rang. Cassidy's photo filled the screen. A picture from her high school graduation. Her smile bright and genuine. Or at least I'd thought it was genuine back then. I answered. "Mom. Finally. I've been trying to reach you. Is everything okay?" Her voice was light, cheerful, concerned in that performative way that now made my skin crawl. "Everything's fine," I said calmly. "How's Rome?" "Oh my God, amazing. We went to this incredible museum today, the Galleria Borghese. I wish you could see it, Mom. The sculptures are just breathtaking. I took so many photos for you." Photos she probably pulled from Google Images or generated with AI. More lies to add to the mountain. "That sounds wonderful, sweetheart. Are you sure you're okay? You sound weird." "I'm just tired. Long day at work." I paused. "Cassidy, I need to ask you something." "Sure, what's up?" "When you applied for the study abroad program, did you have any trouble with the application process? Any issues with confirmation or payment?" There was a beat of silence, just a fraction of a second too long. "No, why? Everything went smoothly. The program coordinator was really helpful." "And you're definitely enrolled? You're definitely attending classes?" "Of course I am." "Mom, what's going on? You're freaking me out a little." The ease of the lies. The smooth, practiced way she deflected concern back onto me. How many times had she done this over the past 4 months? How many times had she made me feel guilty for questioning her? "Nothing's going on. I was just wondering." I kept my voice light. "Listen, I need to go. I have a meeting in a few minutes." "Okay. Love you, Mom." "I love you too, Cassidy." I hung up before she could hear the crack in my voice. That night, I didn't sleep. I sat at my kitchen table with a legal pad and started making a list of everything I knew, everything I could prove. The credit card statements showing purchases in Ohio, not Italy. The Venmo transactions with Tyler Morrison. The Facebook photos with location tags in Fairfield. The apartment lease in her name. The phone call confirming she'd withdrawn from the program and never paid the deposit. $30,000. Wire transfers, credit card payments, Venmo transactions. All documented. All traceable. I could go to the police. What she'd done was fraud. Wire fraud, bank fraud, maybe even identity theft since she'd forged documents. She could face criminal charges. But she was my daughter. That thought kept circling back, no matter how much I tried to push it away. She was my daughter. The little girl I'd rocked to sleep when she had nightmares. The teenager I'd stayed up with during bad breakups. The young woman I'd been so proud of when she got into college. Except that version of her. The version I thought I knew. Maybe that person had never really existed. Maybe I'd been seeing what I wanted to see all along. Around 2 a.m, my phone buzzed with a text from Cassidy. Sent you some new photos. Check Instagram. Miss you so much, Red Heart. I opened Instagram. The latest post showed her in front of a fountain, the caption reading, "Making wishes at Fontana di Trevi. Rome, you have my heart, blue heart, Italy." Except this time, I zoomed in on her reflection in the water. You could just barely see it. The fountain behind her was real, probably pulled from a stock photo. But her reflection showed a completely different background. A plain wall, indoor lighting, maybe a green screen setup. She wasn't even trying very hard anymore. She'd gotten sloppy, overconfident. Or maybe she just knew I'd never looked that closely. Because I was a pushover. I screenshot the photo, noting the metadata, the timestamp, the telltale signs of editing. Then I added it to my growing file of evidence. The next morning, I called my best friend Rachel. We'd known each other since college, and she was one of the few people who'd been there through everything. My husband's death, raising Cassidy alone, every struggle and triumph along the way. "I need to tell you something," I said when she answered. "And I need you to just listen, not judge, not tell me what to do yet. Can you do that?" "Of course. What's wrong?" I told her everything. The photo with the kitchen reflection. The credit card statements. The apartment in Fairfield. Tyler Morrison. The fake Instagram posts. The phone call to the study abroad program. All of it came pouring out in a rush, and when I finished, there was a long silence on the other end of the line. "Margaret," Rachel finally said, her voice tight. "That's not just lying. That's criminal fraud." "I know. Tire-t-il $200. She stole $30,000 from you." "I know. You have to confront her. You have to." She stopped. "Wait. You already know all this. You're calling me because you've already decided what you're going to do, haven't you?" Rachel knew me too well. "I'm going to give her a chance to tell me the truth," I said. "One chance. If she comes clean, admits what she's done, and commits to making it right, therapy, paying me back, whatever it takes, then maybe we can rebuild. But if she keeps lying, then what? Then I'm pressing charges." Rachel was quiet for a moment. "You're serious?" "Completely. Margaret, she's your daughter. Which is exactly why I have to do this. If I let her get away with this, what am I teaching her? That she can lie, manipulate, steal, and there are no consequences as long as she's stealing from someone who loves her." My voice hardened. "No. I won't do that to her. I love her too much to let her become that person." "When are you going to talk to her?" "This weekend. I'm going to tell her I'm coming to visit. That I have a surprise. Oh God. I need you to come with me. As a witness. I need someone else there who can verify what happens, what's said." "Of course I'll come. But Margaret." Rachel's voice was gentle now. "Are you ready for how this might end?" I looked around my kitchen, at the empty refrigerator where Cassidy's fake photos used to hang, at the table where we'd eaten breakfast together every morning before school, at the countertop that had appeared in that Instagram photo. "No," I admitted. "But I'm doing it anyway." I called Cassidy that afternoon. "Hey, sweetheart. How would you feel about a video call tonight? I really miss seeing your face." There was a pause, just a heartbeat of hesitation. Oh, Mom, I wish I could. But the Wi-Fi in my apartment is terrible. Video calls barely work. That's why we've just been doing voice calls. Of course. Another excuse, another layer of protection. That's okay, I said smoothly. Actually, I have better news. I've been thinking about what you said, about how much this experience is changing your life, and I realized I've never been to Europe. I've spent my whole life working, saving, and I've never given myself permission to just go somewhere. That's great, Mom. You should totally take a trip after I get back. We could plan something together. Actually, I was thinking I'd come visit you. In Rome. Next weekend. Dead silence. Mom, I don't think. I've already talked to my boss. I'm taking personal days. And I found a great flight deal. I'll only be there for a long weekend, Friday through Monday, so I won't disrupt your studies too much. But I thought it would be wonderful to see where you're living, meet your roommates. Maybe you could show me some of your favorite spots? No. The word came out too fast, too sharp. She caught herself. I mean, Mom, that's so sweet, but the timing is really bad. We have midterms coming up, and I'm swamped with projects, and Cassidy. My voice was firm now. I'm coming to visit. I've already booked everything. I'll send you my flight information tonight. You can't just, Mom, please, I'm asking you not to come. It's not a good time. Why not? I just told you. Midterms, projects. The program doesn't have midterms in October. I checked the academic calendar on their website. Another silence, longer this time. I could almost hear her mind racing, trying to find the next lie, the next excuse. Fine, she said finally, her voice cold now. Come if you want. But don't expect me to drop everything to play tour guide. I have a life here, Mom. I can't just rearrange it because you suddenly decided to be spontaneous. I understand. I'll text you when I land. Whatever. She hung up without saying goodbye. I didn't book a flight to Rome, of course. I booked a hotel room in Fairfield for Friday night. A chain hotel 3 blocks from Westchester Lane. On Thursday, I went to see a lawyer. Her name was Patricia Chen, and Rachel had recommended her. Sharp, no nonsense, specialized in family law and fraud cases. I laid out everything. The documents, the bank statements, the screenshots, the timeline. Patricia listened carefully, taking notes, occasionally asking clarifying questions. You have an incredibly strong case, she said when I finished. Wire fraud, bank fraud, possibly theft by deception depending on how the DA wants to pursue it. We're looking at felony charges with significant penalties, fines, restitution, potentially jail time. My stomach clenched at jail time. But I kept my expression neutral. However, Patricia continued, I need to make sure you understand what you're about to do. If you press charges against your daughter, there's no taking it back. Once the legal system is involved, it's out of your hands. Even if you change your mind later, the state can still prosecute. I understand. This will destroy your relationship with her. Maybe permanently. Our relationship is already destroyed. She destroyed it when she decided I was someone she could steal from without consequence. I met Patricia's eyes. I'm not doing this to punish her. I'm doing this because she needs to learn that actions have consequences, and I'm the only one who can teach her that. Patricia nodded slowly. All right, let's talk about what happens next. Friday morning, I packed a small overnight bag. Rachel picked me up at 9, and we drove to Fairfield in near silence. She knew better than to fill the quiet with empty reassurances, or advice I didn't ask for. Sometimes the best kind of friendship is just presence. We checked into the hotel around noon. I told Cassidy I was landing at 2 o'clock and would meet her at her apartment at 4. That gave her 2 hours to panic, to scramble, to maybe, if there was any decency left in her, come clean. At 3:45, Rachel and I drove to Westchester Lane. My hands were steady on the wheel, but my heart was hammering so hard I could feel it in my throat. Last chance to back out, Rachel said quietly. I'm not backing out. We parked in a visitor spot with a clear view of apartment 4B. At exactly 4 o'clock, I walked up to the door and knocked. Cassidy answered almost immediately, like she'd been waiting right behind the door. And the moment I saw her face, I knew she was going to keep lying. She was dressed carefully, Nice jeans, a sweater I'd never seen before, her hair styled. Behind her, the apartment had been hastily cleaned. The takeout containers were gone, the gaming consoles hidden. There was a textbook open on the coffee table. Art history, probably borrowed from the library that morning. Aprop. Mom. She smiled, but it didn't reach her eyes. You made it. I thought you were flying into Rome. She was still doing it. Still playing the part. Cassidy, we need to talk. Can I come in? Of course, but... She glanced nervously over her shoulder. My roommate is sleeping. She's not feeling well. Maybe we could go get coffee instead. I'd prefer to talk inside. Mom, I really don't think. I walked past her into the apartment. She had no choice but to step back. The space looked different from when I'd been here 3 days ago. Cleaner, more staged. But it was still unmistakably an Ohio apartment, not a Roman flat. American outlets on the walls. American light switches. Through the window, I could see the parking lot with Ohio license plates. Nice place, I said calmly. How much is the rent? What? The rent? For this apartment. In Fairfield, Ohio. The color drained from her face. I don't know what you're talking about. Cassidy, please. Don't. My voice was steady, but I could feel something cracking inside my chest. Don't keep lying to me. Not now. Not when I'm standing here giving you one last chance to tell me the truth. She stood frozen in the doorway, her mouth opening and closing like she was trying to find words that wouldn't come. I know you never went to Rome. I continued. I know you withdrew from the program in June. I know you've been living here with your boyfriend Tyler for 4 months. I know about the fake Instagram posts, the staged photos, the money you've been taking from me for an education you're not getting. Mom, I can explain. Then explain. Right now. Tell me the truth about all of it, and don't leave anything out. She stared at me, and I watched emotions flicker across her face. Panic, calculation, defiance. For a moment, I thought she might actually do it. Might break down and confess everything. Instead, she lifted her chin and said, You're crazy. I don't know what you think you found, but you're wrong. I've been in Rome this whole time. The lie was so brazen, so absurd considering I was literally standing in her Ohio apartment, that I almost laughed. There's an American electrical outlet behind your left shoulder, I said quietly. The window shows a parking lot with Ohio plates. Your mail is on the counter, addressed to this apartment. And your boyfriend's gaming console is under a blanket on the couch, where you tried to hide it. Cassidy's eyes darted to each thing I mentioned, watching her carefully constructed set fall apart. You had one chance, I said. One opportunity to come clean. To show me you understood what you'd done, and that you wanted to make it right. You chose to keep lying. What are you going to do? Her voice was small now, frightened. I pulled out my phone and opened the folder where I'd saved all the evidence, bank statements, screenshots, credit card records. I'm going to the police. I'm pressing charges for fraud, theft, and wire fraud. $30,000, Cassidy. That's a felony. You can't. She stepped toward me, her voice rising. I'm your daughter. You can't send me to jail. I'm not sending you to jail. You sent yourself to jail the moment you decided to steal from me. It wasn't stealing. You gave me that money. I gave it to you for a study abroad program. Not for an apartment with your boyfriend. Not for furniture and takeout and fake engagement rings. You lied to obtain that money, which makes it fraud. Cassidy's face was red now, angry tears streaming down her cheeks. You never cared about the program. You just wanted to feel good about yourself, like you were this amazing mother making sacrifices. You wanted me to owe you. The accusation hit like a slap, but I didn't flinch. Maybe there's some truth to that, I said quietly. Maybe I did want to feel like a good mother. But that doesn't excuse what you did. It doesn't make the lying okay, or the stealing, or the way you manipulated me every single day for 4 months. So that's it? You're just going to destroy my life? No, sweetheart. You destroyed your own life. I'm just making sure you face the consequences. Behind me, I heard the apartment door open. Rachel had been waiting in the car, but she must have sensed it was time. She stood in the doorway, a witness to everything, just like I'd asked. Cassidy looked between us, and something in her expression shifted. The tears stopped. Her jaw set. And when she spoke again, her voice was cold. "Get out of my apartment." "Gladly," I said. "Expect to hear from the police within 48 hours." I walked out of that apartment with my head high and my heart in pieces. Rachel drove us back to the hotel. I sat in the passenger seat, staring out the window at the strip malls and chain restaurants, feeling like I was watching my life from outside my own body. "You did the right thing," Rachel said finally. "Did I?" "Yes. Even if it doesn't feel like it right now." Back at the hotel, I sat on the edge of the bed and let myself cry. Really cry, for the first time since this had all started. Not the quiet tears from that first night, but deep, wrenching sobs that came from somewhere I didn't know existed inside me. I cried for the daughter I thought I had. For the relationship I thought we'd built. For every sacrifice I'd made thinking it was building something beautiful, when really I'd just been teaching her that I was an easy mark. Rachel sat beside me and held my hand, not saying anything, just being there. And eventually, when the tears ran dry, I took a shaky breath and reached for my phone. Patricia Chen answered on the second ring. "It's Margaret Hart." She wouldn't admit it. She kept lying, even when I was standing in her apartment. "I'm sorry, Margaret. Are you ready to move forward?" "Yes." "What do I need to do?" "Come to my office Monday morning. Bring all the documentation. We'll file a police report together, and I'll walk you through every step of the process." "Thank you." After I hung up, Rachel said, "You should eat something." "I'm not hungry." "Margaret, you haven't eaten since breakfast. Come on." She ordered room service, soup and sandwiches, comfort food that I picked at without really tasting. We watched mindless TV until late, neither of us really paying attention. Around midnight, Rachel fell asleep in the chair by the window, her head tilted at an uncomfortable angle. I lay awake staring at the ceiling, my mind replaying every moment of the confrontation. The look on Cassidy's face when she realized I knew. The way she tried to keep up the lie even when the evidence was literally surrounding her. The coldness in her voice when she told me to leave. My phone buzzed around 2 a.m. A text from an unknown number. "This is Tyler. She's losing it. She's been crying and throwing things for hours. She tried calling you like 50 times. I don't know what to do." I stared at the message for a long time, my thumb hovering over the reply button. Part of me, the mother part, the part that had kissed scraped knees and chased away nightmares, wanted to call her, to fix it somehow. But I didn't. Instead I typed, "She needs to face this. I'm sorry you're in the middle of it." 3 dots appeared, disappeared, appeared again. Finally. "Are you really going to press charges?" "Yes. She's my girlfriend. I love her. But what she did to you, that's not okay. I just wanted you to know that." I didn't respond. There was nothing left to say. Sunday morning, Rachel and I drove back home in silence. The landscape looked different somehow, grayer, emptier. Or maybe it was just me who had changed. When we pulled up to my house, Rachel turned to me. "Do you want me to come in? Stay with you for a while?" "No. I need to be alone." "Call me if you need anything. Day or night, I mean it." "I will. Thank you for being there." She hugged me tight. "You're stronger than you think you are, Margaret." I went inside and the house felt cavernous, echoing. I'd lived here for 15 years, raised Cassidy in these rooms, and now it felt like a museum of a life that no longer existed. My phone rang. "Cassidy." I let it go to voicemail. It rang again, and again, and again. Finally, I turned it off completely and set it on the kitchen counter. Then I went to my office and started organizing all the documentation for Patricia. Bank statements in chronological order. Credit card bills highlighted. Screenshots printed and labeled. The acceptance letter from the study abroad program with its dates circled in red. The email from the program coordinator confirming Cassidy had withdrawn. It took hours. By the time I finished, the sun was setting, and I had a complete file that told the entire story in black and white numbers and irrefutable facts. This was what I was good at. Numbers, organization, evidence. This I could control. Monday morning, I met Patricia at her office. We spent 3 hours going through everything, piece by piece. Then we drove to the police station together. The detective who took my statement was a woman in her 40s named Sarah Martinez. She had kind eyes and a professional demeanor that made me feel like I wasn't being judged. "This must be incredibly difficult," she said as she reviewed the documents. "It is. You're doing the right thing. I see too many cases where family members enable this kind of behavior, and it just escalates. You're potentially saving her from worse consequences down the road." I wanted to believe that. I needed to believe that. Detective Martinez asked detailed questions. When had I first sent money? How had Cassidy requested it? What exactly had she told me? Did I have any recorded conversations? I answered everything as precisely as I could, the accountant in me grateful for the structure, the logic of the process. After 2 hours, she closed her notebook and looked at me directly. "Mrs. Hart, I'm going to be honest with you. This is a strong case. Very strong. The evidence is clear, the paper trail is extensive, and the amount involved qualifies as a Class D felony in our state. If prosecuted, your daughter could face up to 5 years in prison and significant fines." The words 5 years hit me like a physical blow. 5 years. Cassidy would be 27 when she got out. Her entire mid-20s gone. "However," Detective Martinez continued, "that's the maximum. First-time offenders, especially in cases involving family, often receive lighter sentences, probation, restitution, community service, especially if they show remorse and cooperate." "What happens next?" "We'll open an investigation. I'll need to interview your daughter, her boyfriend, potentially the landlord of the apartment. We'll verify all the transactions and the timeline. Then we'll present the case to the district attorney, who will decide whether to file charges." "How long does that take?" "Usually a few weeks. I'll try to move it quickly." She paused. "Mrs. Hart, once we contact your daughter, she'll know you're serious. There's still time to." "I'm not changing my mind." She nodded. "All right. I'll be in touch." The call came on Wednesday afternoon. I was at work, trying to focus on a quarterly audit, when my cell phone rang with a number I didn't recognize. "Mrs. Hart? This is Detective Martinez. I wanted to let you know that we contacted your daughter this morning. She's been informed of the investigation, and that charges will likely be filed." My hands went cold. How did she respond? She became very emotional. Denied everything at first, then tried to claim it was a misunderstanding. When we showed her the evidence, Detective Martinez paused. "She asked if she could speak with you." "No. I understand. I told her that you're not required to have any contact with her during the investigation. However, her boyfriend, Tyler Morrison, has agreed to cooperate fully. He's provided a statement corroborating your account." So Tyler had made his choice. Part of me felt bad for him. He was young, probably hadn't understood what he was getting into. But mostly I felt relief that someone was telling the truth. "Thank you for the update. One more thing. Your daughter has retained an attorney. They've requested a meeting with the district attorney to discuss a possible plea arrangement. I wanted you to be aware before you hear it from someone else." "What kind of plea arrangement?" "I don't have details yet. But typically in cases like this, if the defendant shows remorse and agrees to full restitution, the DA might consider reducing charges or recommending probation instead of jail time." After we hung up, I sat at my desk staring at my computer screen without seeing it. Cassidy had hired a lawyer. Of course she had. With what money? I didn't know. Maybe Tyler's family, maybe she'd maxed out another credit card, maybe she was still convinced she could talk her way out of this. My office phone rang. The receptionist's voice was hesitant. "Margaret, there's someone here to see you. She says she's your daughter." My heart stopped. "Tell her I'm not available." I did. "She says she'll wait." I looked at the clock. 3:15. I had another meeting at 4, then I could leave through the back entrance. I didn't have to see her. I didn't have to. But I knew she wouldn't leave. She'd sit in that lobby for hours if she had to. And eventually, I'd have to face her. Tell her 5 minutes. In conference room B. Cassidy looked terrible. Her face was blotchy and swollen from crying, her hair unwashed, wearing the same sweater from Friday. She stood when I entered the conference room, and for a moment she just stared at me with red-rimmed eyes. Mom, you have 5 minutes. Make them count. She flinched at my tone. Please, please, you have to drop the charges. I'll pay you back every penny, I swear. I'll get a job, 2 jobs, I'll work day and night, but please don't do this to me. You should have thought of that 4 months ago. I made a mistake. I'm 22 years old. I'm allowed to make mistakes. Stealing $30,000 isn't a mistake, Cassidy. It's a crime. And you didn't just do it once. You did it repeatedly, deliberately for months. Every time you asked me for more money, every time you posted a fake photo, every time you called me from Rome and lied to my face, those were choices. I know it was wrong and I'm sorry. Her voice broke. Mom, I'm so sorry. I never meant for it to go this far. It started as just a few weeks, just a little time to figure things out, and then it got out of control and I didn't know how to stop. So you kept lying. You kept taking my money. You called me a pushover to your boyfriend. She went pale. Tyler told you that. He told me a lot of things. He's cooperating with the police investigation. That bastard. Don't. My voice was sharp. Don't try to make him the villain here. You involved him in this. You used him just like you used me. Cassidy sank into a chair, her hands covering her face. What do you want from me? Tell me what to do and I'll do it. Therapy? I'll go to therapy. Community service? I'll do 1,000 hours. Just please, please don't send me to prison. I looked at this young woman, my daughter, my only child, and felt nothing but exhaustion. The anger had burned itself out over the past week, leaving only sadness and a profound sense of loss. I want you to take responsibility, I said quietly. Not because you got caught. Not because you're afraid of consequences. But because what you did was wrong, and you need to understand that on a fundamental level. I do understand. Y suerido. No, you don't. Because if you really understood, you wouldn't have kept lying to me on Friday. You wouldn't have tried to maintain the deception, even when I was standing in your apartment. You would have broken down and confessed and begged for forgiveness, not because you were caught but because you were genuinely sorry. I am genuinely sorry. Are you sorry you lied? Or are you sorry you got caught? She opened her mouth, then closed it. And in that moment of hesitation, we both knew the answer. I thought so, I said. I turned to leave. Mom, wait. Her voice was desperate now. If you do this, if you let them send me to jail, you'll regret it. You'll never forgive yourself. I'm your daughter. Your only child. Dad would be so disappointed in you. I spun around so fast she shrank back in her chair. Don't you dare, I said, my voice low and dangerous. Don't you dare invoke your father's memory to manipulate me. Your father was honest, decent, and kind. He worked hard and treated people with respect. You think he'd be disappointed in me? If he could see what you've become, it would break his heart. Tears were streaming down her face now. Please, Mom. Please. I have no one else. You have Tyler. You have friends. You have the lawyer you somehow managed to hire. What you don't have anymore is a mother you can manipulate and steal from. I walked to the door. Your 5 minutes are up. If you walk out that door, we're done. You understand that? I'll never forgive you for this. I paused with my hand on the doorknob. That's your choice to make. But Cassidy, I'll never forgive myself if I let you get away with this. At least this way, maybe you'll learn something. Maybe you'll become the person I always hoped you'd be. I hate you, she whispered. I know. Maybe someday you'll understand I did this because I love you. I walked out and closed the door behind me. 3 weeks later, I sat in Patricia Chen's office while she explained the district attorney's offer. They're willing to reduce the charges from felony fraud to misdemeanor theft by deception, given that she's a first-time offender and there's a family relationship involved. The terms would be 2 years probation, 500 hours of community service, mandatory financial counseling, and full restitution of $30,000 plus interest, to be paid on a court-ordered schedule. And if she violates probation? Then the original felony charges are reinstated, and she faces prison time. Patricia set down the document. It's a generous offer, Margaret. Most prosecutors wouldn't be this lenient. What about jail time? None, as long as she complies with all the terms. She'd have a criminal record, which would affect employment and housing, but she wouldn't go to prison. I stared out the window at the gray November sky. Part of me, the angry, hurt part, wanted to reject the offer, to push for maximum consequences. But the mother in me, the part that still remembered teaching her to ride a bike and helping her with homework, felt relieved. What does Cassidy say? Her lawyer indicates she'll accept. She doesn't have much choice. The evidence is overwhelming, and if this goes to trial, she'll definitely be convicted on the felony charges. Then I accept too. Patricia nodded. The hearing is scheduled for December 3rd. You don't have to attend if you don't want to. But the judge would probably appreciate hearing from you, a victim impact statement. I'll be there. The courtroom was smaller than I expected, less dramatic than the ones on TV. Cassidy sat at the defendant's table with her lawyer, wearing a conservative navy dress I'd never seen before. She didn't look at me when I entered, just kept her eyes fixed straight ahead. Tyler was there too, sitting in the back row. When our eyes met, he gave me a small, sad nod. I nodded back. The proceedings were clinical, procedural. The charges were read. Cassidy stood and entered her plea, guilty to misdemeanor theft by deception. Her voice was barely audible. Then the judge, a stern woman in her 60s, looked at me. Mrs. Hart, would you like to address the court? I stood, my legs unsteady. I'd prepared a statement, written and rewritten it a dozen times. But now, standing there with Cassidy just 15 feet away, I set my notes aside and spoke from the heart. Your Honor, I'm not here today because I want to punish my daughter. I'm here because I want her to understand that love without accountability isn't love at all. It's enabling. For 4 months, Cassidy lied to me daily. She took money I'd saved through years of sacrifice and used it to fund a life she knew I wouldn't approve of. She didn't just betray my trust. She showed me that she saw me as someone to be used and manipulated. My voice caught, but I pushed through. If I had simply forgiven her, if I'd let this go, I would have taught her that there's one person in the world she can hurt without consequence. And that wouldn't have been love. That would have been cowardice. I looked at Cassidy then, really looked at her. I hope someday she understands that everything I've done because I believe she can be better than this. Because I know she can be better than this. I sat down. The courtroom was silent. The judge reviewed the plea agreement, asked Cassidy if she understood the terms, confirmed she was entering the plea voluntarily. Then she rendered her decision, accepting the plea, imposing the sentence exactly as negotiated. Ms. Hart, the judge said, and Cassidy looked up. You've been given an extraordinary gift today. Your mother could have pursued maximum charges. Instead, she's giving you a chance to rebuild your life. I strongly suggest you don't waste it. Yes, Your Honor. Court is adjourned. Outside the courthouse, the December air was bitter cold. I stood on the steps, pulling my coat tighter, watching people hurry past with their heads down against the wind. Mrs. Hart. I turned. Cassidy stood a few feet away, her lawyer gone. Tyler waiting by a car at the curb. She looked small, vulnerable, younger than her 22 years. I just wanted to say. She swallowed hard. The judge was right. Thank you. For not completely destroying my life. I never wanted to destroy your life, Cassidy. I wanted to save it. I know. I didn't understand before, but... She wiped at her eyes. My lawyer explained what felony fraud charges would have meant. I wouldn't have been able to get a job, rent an apartment, anything. This way, I still have a chance. You have more than a chance. You have an opportunity to start over, to become the person you're meant to be. I paused. Are you going to take it? I want to. I'm scared, but I want to try. She took a tentative step closer. Tyler and I broke up. Well, I broke up with him. He was cooperating with the investigation. And I was so angry at first, but then I realized he was the only one telling the truth. And I couldn't stand being around someone who reminded me of what I'd done. That's mature of you. I moved back in with my old roommate from sophomore year. Got a job waitressing. It's not much, but the tips are okay, and I'm going to start making payments on the restitution next month. As soon as the court tells me how much per month. I nodded. Good. We stood in awkward silence. There was so much I wanted to say, so many questions I wanted to ask. But the distance between us felt uncrossable. A canyon carved by betrayal and consequences. Can I? Cassidy's voice was small. Can I call you? Not now, I know you need time. But maybe in a few months? Or next year? I don't expect you to forgive me, but I'd like to. I'd like to try to earn it back. If that's even possible. I looked at my daughter. Really looked at her. She'd always be my baby girl, the child I'd rocked to sleep and cheered for at soccer games. But she was also a young woman who'd made terrible choices, and now had to live with them. I need time, I said honestly. A lot of time. But Cassidy, I've never stopped loving you. Not through any of this. Love doesn't just disappear because someone hurts you. Even after everything I said? About hating you. Even then. You're angry and scared and ashamed. And you lashed out at the person you knew would still love you no matter what. I understand that. I took a breath. But love doesn't mean I trust you. Trust has to be earned back, piece by piece, through actions, not words. Do you understand? Yes. She was crying now, quiet tears running down her cheeks. I'm going to earn it back. I promise. Even if it takes years. Then call me in 6 months. We'll see where we are then. She nodded and turned to go, then stopped and looked back. Mom, I really am sorry. For all of it. I know, sweetheart. I know. I watched her walk to Tyler's car. No, someone else's car, I realized. She was really starting over. Tyler waved at me from the driver's seat before pulling away, and then they were gone. Rachel appeared at my elbow. I hadn't even realized she'd been there, waiting in the courthouse. You okay? She asked. No, I said honestly. But I will be. Want to get coffee? Actually, I want to go home. Take a long bath. Maybe order too much Chinese food and watch terrible movies. That sounds perfect. I'll join you. We walked to the parking lot together. The winter sun was setting early, painting the sky in shades of orange and pink. It reminded me of those fake Italian sunsets in Cassidy's photos, except this was real. Honest. True. That night, alone in my house after Rachel left, I sat at my kitchen table with a cup of tea and thought about everything that had happened. The discovery, the confrontation, the investigation, the court hearing. It had been the hardest thing I'd ever done. Harder than losing my husband. Harder than raising a child alone. Harder than any challenge I'd faced in 58 years of life. But I'd done it. I'd chosen the difficult path because it was the right path. Would Cassidy ever fully understand? Would our relationship heal? I didn't know. Maybe in 6 months we'd have coffee and start to rebuild. Maybe it would take years. Maybe we'd never be close again in the way we once were. Or at least, in the way I'd thought we were. But I knew this. I'd taught her the most important lesson I could. That actions have consequences. That love means holding people accountable. That being someone's mother doesn't mean being their doormat. And maybe, just maybe someday she'd thank me for it. I picked up my phone and opened a new note. At the top I wrote, things I've learned. Then I started typing. Love without boundaries isn't love, it's enabling. The hardest choices are often the right ones. You can't save someone who won't save themselves. But you can refuse to be complicit in their destruction. I set down the phone and looked around my kitchen. The same kitchen that had appeared in that Instagram photo. The moment everything changed. It looked different now somehow. Not smaller or sadder, but clearer. More honest. This was my home. My life. And I'd fought to protect it, even when it meant fighting against my own daughter. That took courage. And maybe, I thought, taking a sip of my tea and watching the steam rise in the lamplight, maybe that's what real love looks like. Not the easy kind that says yes to everything, but the hard kind that sets boundaries and enforces consequences, and refuses to look away from difficult truths. The kind of love that says, I care about you enough to let you fail, so you can learn to stand back up. Outside, snow was beginning to fall, the first snow of winter, and I sat there in my kitchen, watching the flakes drift past the window, feeling something I hadn't felt in weeks. Peace. So that's my story. The story of how I discovered my daughter's betrayal, and how I chose to respond to it with consequences instead of forgiveness. Was I too harsh? Some people think so. My sister stopped speaking to me for a month, said I was cruel, that family should forgive family no matter what. Some of my co-workers whispered that I was heartless, that what kind of mother presses charges against her own child. But I sleep at night, and I know that I did the right thing, even if it was the hardest thing. 6 months from now, Cassidy will call me. Or maybe she won't. Maybe the resentment will be too much. Maybe she'll decide I'm the villain in her story. I can't control that. What I can control is who I choose to be. A woman who stands up for herself, who refuses to be manipulated, who loves enough to let go. Sometimes the most loving thing you can do is say no. Would you have done what I did? Or would you have found another way? I'd love to hear your thoughts. Because this isn't just my story. It's a story about what it means to love someone who's hurt you, and whether forgiveness always means letting go of consequences. Thank you for listening. And remember, you teach people how to treat you. Make sure the lesson is worth learning.